Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Oh, wow. I'm looking at my screen and I am moving really slow right now. I don't know if that's a temporary or permanent glitch. I hope you guys can see me and hear me okay because I am. Oh, hold on. Give me a second. I'm really concerned, and you heard that echo just now, and I hope that this is not one of those weird, glitchy tech days. Let me check the Wi-Fi that I'm on, make sure I'm on the right Wi-Fi. Okay, I think I am. Can you guys hear me? Am I good? Am I good? Okay, because I'm looking at myself on screen, and I was like doing like a slow motion thing, like anyway. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're feeling good. I hope that we're feeling awfully black today. And I'm excited about today. I was in the 5 a.m. club. I got up this morning. I pulled myself out of bed at 5 in the morning. It was really cold, and I went out and I did my run, and I got it in. I made it happen. So I'm feeling really good about the fact that I stuck to my goals, and that's I don't know, that's something that I think is kind of cool. In fact, I saw this longevity expert who was a guy um who basically helps people figure out how to live longer, because longevity is kind of becoming an emerging science in the health field. And he one thing he said that it really resonated is he said life is a sport. And I say, yeah, it is kind of a sport. You get up, you got to compete. You got to fight against father time and fight against disappointments. You got to fight every day. You have to fight something, right? And fight against generational curses, right? And one thing that he also said, in case you want a little tip on this, is he said that basically people over 40 should be working out as if you are an athlete. That's one thing he believes. He believes that you didn't stop playing sports when you finish high school. You didn't stop playing sports when you weren't young anymore. Like even as you get older, you should train like an athlete, not like for the Olympics, but do something. It was on the 60 Minutes episode, Tara. Yeah, you're right. You saw that too. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was really thoughtful stuff. And one thing that he actually said, in addition to that, is he said that when you're strong and you're working out, you're walking, running, lifting, whatever it is that you do, that has a greater impact on your longevity, your ability to survive into your 80s and 90s, than all these other things, like the blood pressure, stuff like that. So that was motivation to kind of, get it going. Like let's make it happen. Let's be strong, be capable. One thing I want to mention to everybody, in case you don't know, you guys know that building black-owned media is really important. We have to have our own messages and methods to connect to each other. And so I have a Spotify podcast. I actually have two of them. One is called the Dr. Boyce Breakdown, where I just, a lot of these Money in the Morning sessions can be found there as well. So if you're in your car and you just want something to listen to, or maybe you miss class, you can catch some of the episodes there. And the other one's called Dr. Boyce Daily Stock Market. I'll put a link to the Dr. Boyce Breakdown in the chat. And if you could actually subscribe to it, like, and I'm because I'm very conscious about us doing stuff in the moment, just hit the button now if you could, like, and just follow. Yeah, I promise you, I won't waste your time, and it really helps a lot, because I'm gonna tell you, like, it's not easy. It's not easy. Like Kermit the Frog used to sing, "It's not easy being green." Well, it's not easy being me sometimes because I'm a little different. I know I try to say stuff nice and politically correct, but I just make people get mad at me and they get scared of me and they think that I'm evil and too radical and too pro-black. I just don't have a lot of capacity for bullshit. I just don't. I think that we just sit here and we're all this stuff that we could be doing, it ain't happening. And I'm the guy who's like, what are we doing? Are we gonna make it? Are we gonna make a move? Or are we just gonna sit here, right? And so when I see politicians that, you've been sitting in office all these years, you've been getting elected, black representatives, all this, but I got to go to South Side of Chicago and find dead babies in the street, and y'all act like that didn't happen. Or I got to go out and look at us making the same mistakes that people were making 40 years ago. Or I got to go out here and constantly see my people on their knees bowing and scraping and begging white people to save us. That gets on my nerves. I don't like that. I think that we're better than that. I just can't help. So that comes out of me, and some people can tolerate it, and some people think I'm being mean or I'm being an uppity Negro, or maybe it's impatience. My father told me that. He said you got to work on your patience. You're not a, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. I remember when I was at University of Kentucky, true story, we led one of the most radical a pro-black protest ever in the history of that school. It was in the 1990s. It was a wild time. And I guess I was the de facto leader of the protest. I don't talk about my University of Kentucky days that much, but this was back in the 90s. So I want you to picture the 1990s. Like TLC was still popping, and Mary J. Blige was young. Nobody knew Diddy was going to be having parties 25 years later, and we or those crazy parties back then. Diddy parties were a good thing, and so anyway, at this time, it was actually mid to late 90s. So maybe even kind of pre Diddy. Diddy was just becoming something. And so basically, what happened was there was a black girl who got attacked where they put a knife to her throat because she wrote in. I used to write these articles in the campus paper, and everybody hated me. All the white people hated me. So most of the black people loved me, right? It was like that, right? It was an interesting experience, and I didn't really think I was doing nothing other than just telling my truth. I was like, this conservative crap is stupid, and I was probably a little more on that liberal tip in terms of thinking that race was a delineator for politics. Like if you're a Democrat, you're pro-black. If you're a Republican, you have to be a sellout. I don't think that way anymore. I know I have a lot of Republican friends who are great people. I have a lot of Democratic friends who are great people, and I have people on both sides that I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. So my point is to say that like so at that time I would write these articles and I would just tell my truth and it just for whatever reason made sense. And I'm a mathematician at heart, so to me it would always be well 2 plus 2. If you take two and you put the other two next to the first two, you're going to have four. And then if you add another two to the four, you're going to get six. It would be like that, right? And then people would be like, oh my God, that's so profound. And I'd be like, what's profound about it? It's 2 plus 2 is four. That's been true for a long time. And so what got me started writing in the campus paper actually, see, this is the funny thing. Sometimes that little subtle racism can bring the best out of you if you attack it in the right way. So I read this article. It was during the Republican Revolution and Newt Gingrich and all that. Some of y'all might remember that. And I read this article and it was just the most racist stuff I'd ever seen. This guy was basically, it was kind of like early Charlie Kirkish kind of talk, like black people are this and black people that. And I read this, I'm in the bathroom, I'm like, what the hell is this crap? So I walk and I ran into the university president. His name was Charles Wethington III, and he probably regrets this to this day. But I saw him and I said, "How can somebody write this? This is racist." And you know what he said? He said, "Well, if you disagree, you should write your own editorial." And I said, I'm gonna do that. So I walked over to the journalism school because I didn't know where to go. I was like, I'm looking for the people that run the campus paper. And I ran into a guy on the steps named Alex DeGrand. I said, where can I write an op-ed? Because I got something to say. And he said, well, you can go down here, talk to the editor. His name is Matt. And tell Matt that I said you can have my spot because I don't even want to have my spot anymore. And it was I never forget this guy. He was a white kid and he had the best editorial cartoons, but he didn't really want to write columns. So I go in and I meet this editor. This side, I promise you, I'm gonna bring this back to some economics in a minute because I got a whole like curriculum, but I figured this would be a fun story to tell. So I go in, and the editor is the most like he's the heaviest Republican you could ever meet, like straight up right wing, like just like again, imagine like a 1990s version of a Charlie Kirk, right? And I didn't agree. At that time, I still listen to some of what they say, and I'm like, come on, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense, right? Um, and but it was really interesting because even though we disagreed heavily, we became really good friends. And so here's what would happen, but he would sabotage me because he thought all people that were black or liberal were stupid, right? And I would say I would define myself as a black liberal for sure at that time. And because the world was simpler then. Now the world becomes more complex, and I'm like, some of that liberal stuff I can't get with, some of that conservative stuff I'm kind of like that now. You've heard me talk about that. So I started writing in the paper, right? And what would happen was so he would pick my titles and he would always pick the dumbest titles to make me look really stupid, right? And I would get so mad about it. But then here's what would happen. Everybody would read the article for whatever reason. I didn't even know I could write. I failed English class more times than I could count. But what happened was in college, because I would read so much, because I was trying to do well in school, I just kind of instinctively knew what a good sentence sounded like. But I can't tell you how to break down a sentence. I don't know grammar. I don't know a dangling participle from a piece of chicken. So I didn't know why the sentence worked. I just know that it sounded right. It's almost like making music. You never went to music school, but you know like what what a good beat sounds like. So I would just write and it would just come out and this whole other personality would come out and they would see this whole angry black man because I was pissed off. I was mad. I get mad about inequality. I get mad about mistreatment. I get mad about us being left behind. I get mad about people taking stuff. I get mad that they didn't give us our reparations. I've been an angry black man for a long time, especially when I started realizing how the world really works. So I saw this angry black man would come out and I would be like, right? And I would put this article out and it would be like a massive hit, right? Everybody would read it. And so this editor, again, this deep, heavy conservative who didn't really like what I was saying, he saw how many people were reading. So he would put me in the lead column on Monday. He said Mondays when everybody reads the paper. And so he would put me in there. And so he loved what I was doing, even though he disagreed with me. He loved the fact that it made people read the paper. And then the other crazy part was we became really good friends because it was like I would argue with him and say, I think you're wrong about this and wrong about that. And he would say, no, 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 but I think you're wrong about this, wrong about that. And we would sit on the phone for hours. And I like that. I really like the fact that was before now. Now people get so busy dismissing each other that they don't even talk. I actually enjoyed hearing his point of view because I knew that I could listen to it without necessarily it inflicting on my rights to have my perspective. Do you see what I mean? Like that's probably what makes me old school by now. I probably sound old fashioned to young people now who think that you should cut your friends off because they disagree with you. I don't think that that's the right way to live. I think that's ignorant. I think that that's you're living in a freaking tunnel and all you're going to hear are the same ideas, so you're literally it's like incest with yourself, with your own. It's like intellectual incest or inbreeding. Like you're literally inbreeding you've got your idea, my idea is just like your idea, so your idea is going to be more the idea than it was before than it was so my idea is going to be more my idea than it was, but now it's your idea and my idea having a baby, which makes an even more extreme idea, and then we just become a couple of weirdos who are just feeding off of each other's sort of biases, right? I don't think that's healthy. I think that that's bad, right? I think you should be exposed to new ideas. And I encourage you as intelligent people, like how many of you consider yourselves to be intelligent black people? I hope that you do. I hope everybody says yes. I hope that you all agree with me when I say, hey, let's be intelligent black people. I want to just encourage you. Listen to people that disagree with you and try to just understand. You don't have to agree. Just say, okay, let me hear what you got to say about this because this sounds crazy to me, right? Whatever, right? And that'll make you smarter. That'll stretch your brain a little bit, right? So that was how it all started. And this campus president, I got to finish the story now. Now I just started telling. I hope it's okay. Um, so this president, he regretted the fact that he told me to go write that paper because I became like a little local celebrity, if you want to call it that. Like I would go places, people knew who I was. It would either be like, "Oh, you're Boyce Watkins. I know who you are," or it would be like, "Yeah, I know who you are." No, and people they gained a perception of me based on the public persona, what was in the article, but they would meet me and find that I was very different. I was actually shy, quiet. I've always been believed in being polite, right? But so they would say, "Well, gosh, I thought you would be this angry, mean." I'm saying, "No, I don't want to be mean. I just want to be honest, and I want to be treated fairly." Like that was it. Like fairness was always like kind of a big thing. And so then what happens is like so here's what I got used to, and this again because the Republican guy he didn't like anything I was saying, right? So he would always put articles from white kids that were basically like bashing me, right? Or he would put their letters. There would be letters to the editor in response to the column that was written on Monday. Boyce Watkins is an idiot because blah blah blah. I read Boyce's column, blah blah. Like the white kids, they all would read the stuff and write these horrible letters, and there'd be like hundreds of letters that would come in. And then there was a black girl who wrote in a letter where she said, "You all don't know what it's like to be on this campus. You've never dealt with racism, so you can't relate to what he's saying because you've never gone through what we go through as black people, right?" And I was surprised he published that because most of the stuff he published was usually negative. And And so when this girl was walking to campus, her name was Tanya something. I don't have her last name in my head, but she was walking to campus and these white kids followed her to campus and when she walked into the door to the psychology building, they pinned her behind the door and put a knife to her throat. And they said, if you don't like your life on this campus, we can end it for you. Right? So she was mortified. And so she immediately goes to the administration and tells them what happened and they tried to cover it up. They did a cover up. They were like, well, we don't want these people to be proud of what they did, so just keep it. We'll make sure we'll take care of you. Just don't tell anybody because they didn't want her to like let the media know because at that time the University of Kentucky was about to play for a national championship in basketball. They have an excellent plantation. Their Negroes make lots of money for the school, and so they didn't want to mess that up because they have a history of racism that's really, really bad, really, really bad. In fact, one of their big medical school buildings is named after a guy named Happy Chandler, who was a historic basketball coach at University of Kentucky when they were winning championships back in the days where they didn't even let the black guys play. It was nothing but a bunch of white boys running up and down the court. So Kentucky dominated in that era. And I remember him, there's it's legendary where he basically said no Negro will ever play for this school. He also, what is it? Something else happened where, oh, that's right. Kentucky played in a famous NCAA game. They called it the Brown versus Board of Education of College Basketball. Any sports fans know about that game? It was against Texas Western. And so you had these really, talented white boys from Kentucky who were entitled. They were winning national championships, and they played against a bunch of brothers from I think Southwest Texas. And the brothers just ate them up. They just tore them up to pieces. Because I've mentioned this that the black male athlete, the African American male athlete, because of what we've gone through, genetically speaking, we have these genetic capabilities that are not matched by anyone else. Like there is no white version of a Shaquille O'Neal, there is no white version of a Michael Jordan, there is no white version of a Bo Jackson. You could keep going down. There is no white version of a Serena Williams, right? So was it University of Texas El Paso? I'm sorry, I said Southwest Texas. Sorry about that. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for correcting me. It was 1966. And so anyway, after that, they were just sort of forced to let the black players play. It was like if you don't bring in the brothers, your opponent will, and you can't compete against them. So anyway, they named their big medical complex. I think it's called the Chandler Medical Center. So this big medical complex is named after a guy who hated black people. And in fact, he was like a racist, but he was like a rich racist. I think he became governor or something. Maybe I'm making that part up. I don't remember, but I don't keep up with people like that. But I know that there was like I remember conversations about him in the '80s using the word nigger in board meetings. Like this is how ridiculous this man was, but they kept him around because he had so much money. So Kentucky had this history they were trying to overcome, and in fact that's probably why I got my scholarship because they're like, no, 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 please come to school. So what happened was that because the Final Four was about to be played and they didn't want the negative publicity, they told this young lady to not tell anybody what happened. So she goes to the Black Student Union. She comes down there. That's where all the black people hung out. And she told us what went down. And of course, we flipped out. We were like, oh, hell no. So we went to the media. I remember everybody got excited because BET came to campus and we had a big protest and we just made it a thing. It just became a thing. And somehow, I think because I was writing about it as it was happening, I became labeled as the leader of the protest. I can't say I was the leader. I didn't do all the work, but I had a voice. I had a big, pretty strong voice, and I was a grad student, so my ideas were pretty solid, I guess, relative to the undergrad. So they kind of turned to me to listen to what I had to say about it, and it was a big deal. It was really heavy, and it was a really deep moment. And I never forgot that young lady because she actually left the university. She left school because of that. And there was actually some white kids that got beat up pretty bad by some black people that were mad about that. So it was a pretty fiery, volatile time on the campus. So if you want to know the origin story of Boyce Watkins and where Boyce was born, that might be it. Because so at this time, that was when I remember Antoine Walker was on the team. That's the guy that went to the NBA and blew $100 million. There, a guy I really liked on the basketball team was named Nazir Muhammad. And Nazir Muhammad, I never forgot him. He played in the NBA also. He was 7 feet tall. He was super intelligent. And we would talk about the things that were going on the campus. And he came to the protests and supported. And we appreciated the athletes doing that because what happens is that because the athletes, these are these $1 million Negroes, they would keep them away from black people like us, right? And this is true. This has always been true. This Jim Brown had that problem when he was at Syracuse. They didn't want him to talk to Ernie. Was it Ernie Davis that won the Heisman after him? They didn't want him talking to the other black athletes, or they would tell the other athletes like, hey, don't go and do that radical stuff, all that protesting and everything, just focus on basketball, just shut up and dribble. And so Nazi defied that. Nazi would come and hang out, and we were friends. And Derek Anderson was another player. He played for the San Antonio Spurs. Kentucky had a lot of good basketball players back then. They still do. And I remember when he came to see me in my office, somebody brought him to see me, and they brought him up there like they were sneaking him up there. The black assistant coach snuck him to my office and said, I can't tell anybody I brought him up here. And I said, why? Is we on the plantation? Is boss gonna come beat us? Like what's gonna happen to us, man? Well, we gonna they gonna kill us? Like what the hell, man? Like you can't even bring this grown ass man to talk to me? Like what is so dangerous about what we're talking about? I am simply supporting him. I'm helping to educate him. I'm a math teacher in this math department. Like and then that's when I began to understand what's really dangerous in America. And what's really dangerous in America, in my view, is black consciousness. That's very scary for people. And black unified consciousness, collective consciousness is horrifically scary, right? And strategy, really scary. If you really want to scare the shit out of them, be strategic, be conscious, and work together. You do that, oh my lord, they might come to your house and kill you on a Tuesday. I'm serious. Like that's really what makes us very dangerous. So little did I know, I didn't know that I was becoming this dangerous black man. I just thought I was a man who was telling the truth. And in fact, so that president, he regretted, though. I think he regretted telling me to go write this article, because during the protest, I'll never forget. I know why I brought this up. I brought this up because what happened was I got this letter from him um during in the middle of the chaos, right? Because they're like, oh shit, how do we slow this down? How do we stop this? And they sent me a note to my office, and he said they said the president would like to meet with you. And I read the note, I'll never forget, and I thought about the movie Braveheart. And if you remember the movie Braveheart with Mel Gibson, there's a point where the king asked, asked the nobles that they were kind of protesting to come and meet with him and eat dinner and talk about it. And when he brought them all in, he killed them all, right? They like hung their heads on the stake. And so I said, I'm not going to meet with this man. So I took the note and I threw it in the garbage. I was like, I don't want to go talk to you. And then I got another note like a week later, like, hey, the president would like to meet with you. You didn't see our first message? And I was like, yeah, I saw your message. I just didn't answer the call. And so eventually I did go see him. And I remember sitting there with this man. So it's me, 25-year-old boys. You ain't talking about the 54-year-old boys that ain't got no hair. This is 25-year-old boys, head full of hair, just sitting there, just curious, like, okay, what's this man got to say? So I'm sitting there, and he's and he's like he's telling me to be patient. And he goes, well, I don't want to tell you to be patient, but I'm thinking, yeah, but you're going to tell me to be patient. And I said, I'm tired of being patient. I said, black people have been waiting for hundreds of years. How much more patient do we got to be? I was like, I don't understand. Like, what do you mean patience? What are we waiting for? And then I remember he would do these little psychological tricks. I'd read about him in a book, and I was testing it to see if he was doing it. So it's called mirroring, right? And so what I noticed was, like, I crossed my legs and he crossed his legs. And so I leaned to the left like this, and he leaned to the left like this. I leaned forward, he leaned forward. I said, wow, this really works. So he's really trying to connect with me by like copying what I do. And then I left, and it's like, and I think he asked me not to write any more articles about him, which was a terrible mistake. Remember, this is the same guy who encouraged me to go write the first article. So I'm cracking up. I'm like, man, he's probably pissed right now because he's the one that told me to express myself. I wasn't even thinking about doing it until I ran into him. I mean, how often when you're walking on a big college campus like Kentucky that you're going to run into the president of the campus, right? So God did all this. This ain't not but my mama would say this ain't not but God. So this man that I saw just that one day, that's the only time. Actually, no, sorry, two times I ran into him on campus. The second time, he was like, it was like after all this, and he was like, so when do you graduate again? Like, because they just wanted me out of there. And I remember thinking that, okay, I get what's happening now also, that it's strategic. They're trying to just sort of wait it out, right? They like that's what they'll do. They'll delay it, and then the summer comes or something, and certain people leave, and then they don't have to deal with the issue anymore. And then I remember also he said something that was really a mistake on his part. He said, I would like for you to stop, if you could stop writing articles about me, which actually empowered the shit out of me, right? Because here I was, I thought what I was saying, you weren't even listening. I thought you were just being presidential. Like you got more important things to do than to read my article. But the fact that you asked me to stop, oh, I doubled down. I said, "Oh man, now I got your attention. Holy crap!" So I so I started writing, and I would just taunt this poor man. I mean, but I was kind of red. I probably wouldn't do it the same way now. But that's good about young people. It's like they just do crazy stuff. So I'll write articles instead of calling him Charles Wethington III. I would call him Chuck, and I'd be like, "Why aren't you responding to the black people, Chuck? What's going on, Chuck? How come you're not listening to the students, Chuck?" And oh my God, I know this guy was so mad. So that was the beginning. And just to end this, the last thing that happened, I'll never forget this last day. I was on campus and I was about to graduate and move away to finish my doctorate. And on that very same day, it was announced on ESPN that Nazir Mohammed was about to go to the NBA, that he was leaving for the draft early and all. He declared for the draft. And I was sitting in and eating some food, and I saw Nazi walking. I wanted to go out and congratulate him, and I went out and I said, "Hey man, yeah." I was going to talk about the fact that he was just on ESPN, and before I even had a chance to do that, he said, "Yeah, congratulations on getting into your doctoral program. That's really awesome." And I just said, "Wow, what an amazing person that." He didn't assume that him being on ESPN was the most important thing that happened that day. He thought about me before I thought about him. And if anybody knows this guy, tell him how much I just respect him because that kind of humility to come from someone that was doing what he was doing, you're on national TV and all that. You don't see that often, right? I told you that's why I have a challenge talking to sometimes celebrities or whatever because sometimes the egos can be just a little bit ridiculous. And so but I wrote my last article, and in the last article I was writing to the white people on the campus. I said, you think you've gotten rid of me now? I said, but just know that you haven't gotten rid of me. Actually, you're going to see me again in about 7 or 8 years, except this time I will not be a local campus figure. I will be a national figure. I told them that. And it was roughly about 7 or 8 years later that I did my first national TV appearance. I was actually on Fox News. It was a mortifyingly scary moment, but that was the beginning of like this part of my career. So ultimately, I would say that I think for all of us, what's interesting is that I think there's like always this plan, this God's plan, right? That's driven by whatever energy you have, whatever your passion is, whatever it is that you're putting your time into every day, is shaping into something remarkable long term. And you may not even understand it, until 20 years from now. You may not even get it till the year 2045 or something like that. So keep going on your plan. And really the biggest thing I would say is, I think that you shouldn't run away from your purpose. You shouldn't run away from that which drives you, that which makes you say, no, I'm supposed to do this, right? And I think that that's the danger of a capitalist society is that a capitalist society deflates and kills your purpose. It says whatever fire is inside of you, you need to put that out and you need to come to work today. And nobody wants to live their life, as sort of this lightless, energyless, fireless, damp, dead persona. You want to be the best version of you, whatever that looks like. But that also requires you to accept that person and to love that person, embrace that person, and be willing to ride with that person, right? So, in order for me to talk every morning in the way that I speak, I had to come to terms with the darker side of Boyce and the volatility that comes with being Boyce, right? And the fact that sometimes being Boyce means I'm going to lose friends, the bad things are going to happen, I'm going to do things wrong, but me and him had a fight and we fought it out and we eventually came to accept each other and now that's why I bring him with me everywhere I go, right? So just keep that in mind. It's just a little thought. I hope that's okay. I know that was such a long story. It took me 30 minutes to tell that story, but I probably never tell it again. So there we go. So write it down if it was interesting for you. All right. So one thing I want to mention, my team told me I forgot to mention that we're going to South Africa next May. And I didn't mention that during class. So now I'm mentioning it now for those of you that want to go on the group trip to South Africa. And if you want to see all the trips that we're going to take, you can go to b1voyages.com. That's B, the number one, b1voyages.com. I will be there. Alicia will be there. We're going to spend the week there. Also, we're going on some other trips. Let me see. Maybe I could pull up the website. But yeah, group trips. I wanted to do one on to Black Wall Street in Tulsa. Cody Ransom's out there. He does the best Black Wall Street tour ever, 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 ever. Yeah, okay, that's not listed here on b1voyages.com, but I want to reach out to the team because I want to go to Tulsa. But we have another one in July where we're going to go to DC and kind of do the Black people tour of DC and meet up there and hang out and congregate. So that's in July. And then South Africa is May 14th to the 22nd. A lot of you know, but a lot of you may not know. So if you'd like to go, just go to b1voyages.com. You can also text the word travel to the phone number 87948. So text travel to 87948. All right. So one thing I want to mention here, let's talk about credit scores, actually. This is something I wanted to drill into a little bit. So here is some data on Black credit scores. Now, I believe in keeping your credit score high or getting it up or fixing it, repairing it. I had to repair mine. My credit score fell, pretty bad when I was in grad school because I wasn't thinking about it. But then I poured energy into it and got it up. I think that that does help you in terms of accomplishing things and getting things done. But one thing I want to remind you is that credit scores really are kind of a replacement for the ultimate credit score, which is actually having assets and wealth. If you have assets and wealth, then you have something called collateral. And when you have collateral, you don't need a credit score. People that have collateral, their assets are backing them, not, you know, trust and whatever the credit score represents, integrity, financial integrity. I trust that you're going to do the right thing and pay this back. No, if you got assets and they're collateralized, then they just know, like, of course you're going to pay it back, because if you don't, then we get to go and get our money, right? So a few reasons why African Americans have low credit scores on average is one, thin or short credit history. A lot of people in the Black community have fewer or shorter standing credit accounts than the white counterparts, so that makes a big difference. Like, credit scores are kind of weird. They do weird stuff like penalize you for, for closing your accounts, which that's crazy to me, right? And so in a way, what it really speaks to is that maybe the credit score isn't just a measure of your ability to pay back. It's really also a measure of how much money they can make off of you, right? So it's not just like, I want to be sure that you're going to pay me back. It's like, I need to be sure you're going to use this credit card. Like, I think that I think banks hate it when they give you a card and you just do like my grandma used to do. My grandma would just get a card and never use it. Right? I don't know if anybody else had a grandma like that, or if anybody else like that, where you just get a card and you're like, I just want to have it just in case. My grandma, she was like, I'm not using this thing unless, you put a gun in my head, I ain't using this thing. But in case of emergency, she wanted to have the card, but she wasn't going to use it. So if you gave her like these programs, these rewards programs, or this incentive, like, no interest if you pay it back in a certain amount of time or whatever. A lot of these programs are built around the assumption that once, like the drug dealer, if they give you a free sample, they're assuming you're going to come back. They're not giving a free sample because they want to just give things away for free. They're giving the free sample because they want to get you hooked, and they feel like once they suck you in, then you're going to go deeper on your own, and that's going to create a more profitable relationship. But if they knew that they were going to give you a sample and you were going to say thank you very much and then go to another drug dealer or never use the drug again, then that would probably change their behavior. So credit card companies, which are the financial drug dealers of our society, pretty much, that's, I think, what they like. They don't just want to know that you're going to pay them back. They want to know that you're going to use the card and you're going to waste money in the first place. So if you're not a person who makes a lot of financial mistakes or a person who overspends, then you're just not a good customer. And it's not because you don't have integrity. You do have integrity. You have something better than integrity, right? You have responsibility, you have discipline. They don't want disciplined people. What they want is undisciplined people that have integrity, right? They like I'm undisciplined and I know I'm going to splurge and waste my money, but when I owe you money, I'm going to pay you back no matter how much money that is. Do you see what I mean? So they got to know that you're going to give it up before they even decide if they want to hit on you. All right, so moving on. Economic instability and the wealth gap. The typical Black family has far less generational wealth. If you have less wealth, that gives you less of a financial buffer. So you end up having to go to credit and things like that to get money that you need. And therefore, when things go wrong, it ends up kicking you in the butt because you don't have that cushion. So if I'm really talking about Black wealth in general, then one of the biggest things that we got to work on for this generation is getting the financial cushion. What does that look like? What does it mean to train the kids to have the financial cushion? The financial cushion should be the top priority. And so because it's very risky to be paycheck to paycheck or whatever in this kind of society. Let's see, number three, high debt burden. Student loans and predatory loans are just absolute wealth killers in the Black community. Student loans, if you took student loans off the table, the racial wealth gap would probably close by about 60%. It would close rapidly. Student loans are to some extent have become the devil. They haven't always been the devil. They weren't the student loans were not the devil 30 years ago. They became the devil when the cost of college started going up because they knew that they could just subsidize everything and they could just get an 18-year-old to sign a piece of paper and have him in debt for life. And so a lot of black students, particularly black women, because black women are so highly educated, have the highest student loan debt burden. And what's fascinating is that half of all black college graduates default on their student loans, which ruins your credit, puts you deep in debt. And there are lots of people who have advanced degrees who are going to die with a negative net worth. That's not how you win the game, right? That's not, so you had a good experience, you had a great job, you had a great career, you had status because you're a college graduate. But if your net worth is negative, you're not really adding to that goal of obtaining the generational wealth. So basically, if you look at high debt relative to income and risk of these penalties for missed payments, collections, things like that, that's what ends up driving the banking system. The banking system makes a lot of its money off of interest and fees, right? And then if you're in that category of receiving the predatory loans, they get to charge you even more interest and even higher fees. And to some extent, that becomes just a penalty for either your mistakes or a penalty that you pay for having lack of access to capital, et cetera. So ultimately, if you're talking about building black wealth, you got to deal with kind of what's going on with student loans. If you don't deal with that, then you're going to have this problem for a long time. Next is you have things like limited access to mainstream financial services. That's a big deal. A lot of black consumers are what they call credit invisible. They're underscored because a lot of our positive transactions are not reported. So a lot of banks don't report when you pay all your bills on time. If you pay rent on time, I mean, I've never understood. It's so weird to me that a person can pay 1,500 a month in rent for 20 straight years on time, but yet you don't think they can afford a $1,200 mortgage, right? That right there is as sinister as it gets, and it's wrong. And that's one of the other reasons why black credit scores are not as high as they should be. And there are, of course, structural barriers that do exist as well. Um, and so there are some things that kind of have to be sort of dealt with. Now, let me give you some pointers on how to sort of deal with these credit issues, particularly if you do pay rent. There actually are services like there's one called Self, Boom Pay, and Experian Boost, Boom Pay, and Self. They actually let you report your rent payment. I haven't tried any of these services out, so don't. This is not an endorsement, but you may look into those because they will actually let you report your rent and add that to your credit file, which is good, right? So that's a good way to do it. Also, there are services that will let you use everyday bills as credit builders like Experian Boost. I mentioned that. Grow Credit and eCredible Lift. So Grow Credit and eCredible Lift, spelled Ecredable Lift, eCredible Lift. They connect to your bank account. They verify your payments. So that means that basically, if you pay your utilities and your phone and streaming services on time, they can count that toward your credit score. So that may be something worth looking at. Now, here's the other thing too. A lot of credit scores are driven by the consistency of your payments, but a lot of you may know that. In case you don't know, now you know. Also, if you don't know, you can actually dispute things on your credit report. There's a formal dispute process because you have rights, right? So if you dispute, if you see things that you don't like or things that are kind of old, if you dispute it, they have to verify it, and if they don't verify it, they have to remove it. So that's actually how I got some stuff taken off my credit report. I just was like, I don't like this. I don't know where that came from. I don't know who those people are, right? And they would look it up, and if those people don't respond and verify the debt, then they have to take it off the credit report. That's a good way. I've seen people really take a lot of stuff off the credit report pretty fast. There are also these interesting, what they call retroactive credit history hacks. And this is deep. Companies like BoomPay, Rent Reporters, Credit My Rent, and Level Credit can actually go back 24 months, and they can connect your bank account and you provide proof of past rent payments. They scan for verified transactions tied to your lease, and they can report those past payments to major credit bureaus. So you can go back 2 years and report past stuff that maybe wasn't accounted for the first time. And I'll name these companies again. One is called Boom Pay, BOOM, Boom Pay, Rent Reporters, Credit My Rent, and Level Credit. Now, here's the thing. I have never used Boom Pay. I've never used Rent Reporters. I've never used Credit My Rent, and I've never used Level Credit ever. So do not take this as an endorsement from Dr. Boyce. You're going to have to investigate that yourself, but it might be worth looking at. Also, when you are looking for new credit, you may want to find out if it's going to be a hard inquiry or not. Hard inquiries will appear in your credit score, and that means basically you're looking for more credit, which tends to lower the score. Some companies use verification methods that don't ding your credit score, which is a good thing. And also, when your credit score does improve, which everybody in here is going to improve your credit score. In fact, I should do a survey and ask you where your credit scores are now, because some of y'all, I've met you, and I know you got good credit, and that's good. I think that's awesome. Some of you that have low credit, don't neglect it. Do your best. Just do your best. It's okay. You're not, you shouldn't be embarrassed. Like a lot of us go through that. It's not. And sometimes things just happen and hereditary, like you might have bad habits that get passed down from parents. I know Sharon doesn't have that problem. She's a 770. I hear bragging. D Hines is a 800. Okay, these uppity Negroes. Pacola's 710. Good for you. All right, look at y'all. I just love this. All right, so and if you're not a 710 or whatever it is, like just do something with it. You'd be amazed how much you can do just by kind of addressing it and not putting your head in the sand. I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they just say, "Hey, it's so bad, I'm not even gonna look at it. I don't even know what it is," right? So part of consciousness, financial consciousness, is awareness. Awareness. What is your credit score? Where does it stand? And I think just awareness of everything it makes a difference. Like you think about health awareness. There are some people who have bad health because they won't even go to the doctor because they feel like because they don't like the doctor because they feel like the doctor is going to make them sick or the doctor's going to give them bad news. And the doctor doesn't make you sick. You are already sick. The doctor just told you that you were sick, right? So you have people that really will think that they can stay healthy as long as they don't go to the doctor. No, your health is not going to change. It's just only going to get worse because you're not addressing the underlying issue, right? And so here, so maybe I'm the financial doctor. So if you are a little bit sick in your credit score, don't be ashamed. Just confront it, do your best, and you ain't got to tell nobody. Don't let nobody judge you on that. That's your business. So once you get your credit score up, though, you can refinance high interest debt. That saves a lot of money, right? You're not paying as much in interest. You can qualify for better deals when it comes to borrowing money, and maybe you can get that business credit line, or you can get that money that you need to make those investments. And so what happens there, and where credit can be a beneficiary or beneficial for you, or you can be the beneficiary of good credit, is that it opens the door for you to participate more actively in the economy in a way that's going to accelerate your wealth. Debt is not the devil. Debt is not something that should be avoided at all costs. No, debt is something that can really, really make your dreams come true. In fact, if I had the opportunity to let everybody in this room borrow $1 million under one condition. Let's say the condition is that we as a group or we have a committee that's going to make sure that you only use that money for good stuff, right? So if you're going to go waste it on something silly, we're not going to let you do that, right? So let's say we had a committee, Pacola Brown's on the committee, Chris Grant, V Snight, Dwayne's on the committee, right? Fanny's got a 790 credit score. She ain't gonna let you do nothing stupid, right? So me and Fanny and everybody else and Charles Johnson, we all decide you have to fill out a form and get approval on what you're going to do with the million, right? That's the condition. But everybody in this room can borrow $1 million. Do you know I would sign up for that deal in a second? I would say, yes, we're in. We're in. All the, however many thousands of you they're going to hang out with me today to watch this conversation. Like we're all in. Why? Well, because now we can go out here and make some dang moves. I mean, do you know how much money, how much income you could make? Do you know that $1 million will work harder than you could ever work? For 95% of the people in this room, $1 million will work harder than you've ever worked in your life. And so here's what would happen. You would trade places. You would stay in the bed or stay home with your kids or watch Netflix, and your money would get up, put its clothes on, grab a briefcase, get in the car, and go to work every day and stay there for 14 hours a day and bring the money home to you. You would be you would be pimping your money. You would be the pimp, right? So because you would be getting all the money and doing none of the work, and the money will be out there on the corner bringing every dollar right back to you. And so I want you to pimp your ride. I want you to pimp your bank account, pimp your wealth, and let your wealth do the work, right? So that million, literally, if you, especially those of you that are in the options class, right? The prime members, you know what I'm talking about, right? If you had $1 million in cash that you could then go and invest safely in stocks, you could probably generate 150, $200,000 a year easily, right? So having access to capital, that's everything. That is the most that to me that should be the ultimate goal for access to capital, and then that opens the door to you controlling the capital. That's better than accessing, right? But if I had a choice between accessing a lot of capital or controlling a little bit, I'd rather access a lot because eventually help me own a lot, right? The key to ownership a lot of times is just getting access to a financial vehicle that will allow you to accelerate your ability to create income, which then gives you the opportunity to build wealth. And that is how you build enough wealth that your equity outweighs your debt, that what you own outweighs what you owe, which creates a positive net worth, which is the whole goal of economics. The whole goal at the end of the day is, did I score enough touchdowns? I played in this game, and the debt is the other team, and my wealth is my team. Did my wealth exceed my debts and give me a positive net worth? Did I score more points than the opposition? And if the answer is yes, then congratulations. You're now living the American dream, at least financially. At least financially, you're living the American dream at that point because you've got a positive net worth and you're able to then hand the ball off, pass the baton to the next generation, and then they're able to come in ahead of the game as opposed to playing from behind. That's what it is. So yeah, access to capital is big. So this is where credit scores can be beneficial. But remember, credit score is not as good as collateral. Your real goal is to have collateral. If you've got $1 million in your investment account, you don't even have to care what your credit score is. You can just say, I got $1 million. My loan to value ratio is 0.5. So I'd like to get a $500,000 line of credit, please. And the bank is going to say, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's it. They're not going to say, well, what is your credit score? You got a 640 or nah, credit scores are for people that ain't got no wealth. So no, and no disrespect to those who have wealth and a credit score. That's good too. But I'm just telling you the truth. Like credit scores are kind of for poor. That's for everybody else. I doubt ever Donald Trump has ever gotten a loan and said, "Well, I got a 720." they, no, they would write him $100 million check because he's got assets that back the loan, right? So that's how the banking thing kind of works, and I want you to get there. That's what I want for you. All right. So one thing I want to do, hopefully you'll let me do this really quick. There's a student in the mastermind that has a business, and that's one of the things that we do for the students. We shout out the businesses that they have, and there's a guy named Tim Haskins, who is a loan officer. He's been a loan officer for 21 years. He does residential and commercial loans in all states except New York. He specializes in FHA, conventional FVA, and USDA loans. So Tim is a guy to reach out to if you're looking to get loans, particularly residential loans. He can assist with down payment assistance, loans for investment properties, loans for self-employed people, and loans for folks that have a hard time proving their income. That's good. So his website is this. I'm going to say it, and if you can type in the chat for me, I'd appreciate it. His name is spelled Tim Haskins, Haskins, and it's HaskinsTeamHomeLoans.com. HaskinsTeamHomeLoans.com. So in fact, I'll type it in here because that's kind of like, hey Tim, if you're listening, we got to get you a shorter URL too, but it's okay. We're gonna work it out. All right, HaskinsTeamHomeLoans.com. So I'm gonna put that in here. So yeah, so reach out to Tim, tell him I sent you. And Tim he's a good brother. He's very smart, and he's a big supporter of the Black Business School, and we appreciate him. So each one support one. So I hope you guys will take a look at his website. I put the URL in the chat. All right, so let's get on out of here, and let's finish up for today. Later on, if you are doing stock options with us, I'll send you guys a fast cash action plan. I'm gonna do two of them right now, and I'll text them out to you. So if you're interested in stock options, you can text the word options to the number 87948. Text options to 87948. And you can also join. We met last night for Prime. We met for about 2 hours. You can go to drboyceprime.com, drboyceprime.com. So God bless you guys. Have a great day. And thank you. And I see you, Kendall and Jen and everybody else. It's great to see everybody. So I'll see you.